If I had to lose 30 pounds fast, this is exactly what I would do. I managed to go from this to this in 90 days by following these exact same principles that I'm going to share with you. And not only me, all these guys inside the system, they are business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, busy guys, they travel, they have a lot of things going on, and they managed to lose 10, 20, 30 pounds in 3 to 6 months, reversing diabetes, improving all their metabolic markers, doubling and tripling their testosterone levels naturally. So I guarantee if you follow these 5 things that I'm going to share with you, you will be able to get similar results. To give you a small introduction before we dive into 5-step process. There is one hormone that controls how you feel and how your body looks like, with insulin. If you learn how to control insulin, fat loss is yours. You're going to feel sharper, you're going to sleep better, your skin will look better, you're going to burn more fat, you're going to build more muscle. So if you learn how to naturally manipulate this hormone called insulin, you will finally get the results that you want. And the problem with insulin is that it's a silent hormone. When insulin is high, you don't feel it. It's something silent that is happening inside your body. But if you learn how to control your insulin spikes and release less insulin, you're going to be able to finally see the changes in your body, and also you're going to start feeling better. Probably you're going to start having more energy, feeling less bloated, less inflamed, less brain fog, again by controlling this hormone which is called insulin. And these 5 things that I'm going to share with you, they are meant to naturally manipulate this hormone called insulin. So basically insulin is an hormone released by your pancreas, and what happens is that you have high insulin and you have low insulin. When you have high insulin, you're in storage mode. When you have low insulin, you're in fat burning mode. Now, and I'm not saying that insulin is bad, you just need to learn when it's beneficial to increase insulin and to decrease insulin. So every time your insulin is high means every time you're eating a bunch of carbs, snacks, and all these things, insulin is high, you're in storage mode, means you're accumulating more fat. When your insulin is low, when you eat less often, and when you change certain things in your diet and certain behaviors, your insulin will be low. That means you're going to be in a fat burning mode. And these 5 things that I'm going to tell you will exactly show you that, how you can keep your insulin levels low and turn you into a fat burning machine. So these 5 things that I'm going to share with you, you don't need to rely on motivation, you don't need to rely on willpower, because this is simply a system. These are rules that if you follow, you're going to get the results that you want. So the number 1 that you need to apply is the PFC system, which is protein, fiber, and carbs. What it means is that the order of the foods that you put in your body is important. Means you need to start with protein, then you're going to put fiber, and then you're going to eat carbs. And what most people do is they start to eat the carbs. But by changing the order, by starting with protein first, you're going to release GLP-1, which is the exact same hormone that popular weight loss medications mimic. What it means is that it's going to have the same biological effect. If you start with protein first, you're going to feel satiated and you're not going to feel like eating much more. And that's exactly the same effect of these hormones. These hormones that you're taking, GLP-1, they simply suppress the appetite. And if you start with protein first during your meals, it's going to have the same exact effect. You're going to produce more GLP-1 and it's going to satiate you. Once you eat the protein, then you want to eat the fiber, your vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, your leafy greens. Just eat your vegetables after the protein, because this will fill you up. So if you start with the protein, release GLP-1, satiate you, then you put fiber, it will fill you up. And then after the fiber, which is the second letter, F, we go to the C, which is the carbs. And by leaving carbs to later on, you're going to massively reduce your insulin spike. And I'm not telling you to change the foods. I'm just telling you to change the order of the foods. Because if you have the same type of foods that I'm telling you, but you start with carbs, and then you have the protein, and then you have the fiber, you're going to spike way more your insulin, leaving you in a fat storage mode. And then by changing the order, having protein first, fiber after, and then carbs last, you're going to reduce your insulin spike by up to 40%, which is massive. And again, I'm not telling you to change what you eat, just change the order, because you're going to notice just by changing the order, you're going to feel that you're not going to eat as much carbs. So if you're hungry, for example, and you're going to start with carbs, with bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, appetizers, you're going to feel like you don't feel satiated, right? You feel like starving, you eat that and you cannot stop eating carbs. But if you start with the protein and then fiber, you're not going to feel as tempted to eat as many carbs. So change the order, apply this method to every time that you eat outside, every time you eat at home, every time you eat, every time you start a meal. Protein first, fiber after, and leave carbs to the last one. Rule number 2 is fasted morning cardio. So what you want to do is you have a non-negotiable of 12 to 14 hours fasting. What it means is that if you eat at 7 p.m., finish eating at 7 p.m., you don't eat anything until 7 a.m. Ideally, push that until 8 or 9. So you want daily 12 to 14 hour fasting. Some days you can push up to 16-hour fasting. And you want some type of cardio, some type of activity in a fasted state, because that will tap directly into your fat storage. And when I say this, it's not, you don't need to go for a run, you don't need to do brutal HIIT classes or anything like that. Just go for a walk. Okay, so you wake up 6 a.m., 7 a.m., just go for a walk, 20 minutes, 30-minute walk, get 3, 4, 5,000 steps in a fast pace. But you want to be in zone 1, zone 2 maximum, because if you start to do zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, that's going to have the negative effect. So you want to aim for 12 to 15,000 steps per day. And this just depends on how ambitious you are with your goals. So if you want to try to accelerate a bit more your fat loss, 15, 17, 18, 20,000 steps per day walking. If you don't have a lot of time, 10 to 12,000 steps. What I suggest as a non-negotiable, 10 to 12,000 steps. Sweet spot, 12,000 steps. For most people to lose 30 pounds fast, I would recommend 12 to 15,000 steps per day. And when I say 15,000 steps or 12,000 steps, it's not just go outside and go get those 15,000 steps in a row. Just gain the habit of moving more during the day. Go to the restroom, walk more. When you're on the phone, just walk a bit, walk after meals, 10, 15-minute walk after meals. When you're in the gym, don't just sit between sets, just walk around. So try to incorporate all these small daily habits, because they will compound over time and they will make you accumulate easily way more steps, making you burn more fat. The third rule is apple cider vinegar. And why is apple cider vinegar beneficial? For 2 main reasons. Decreases insulin spike. And the second one is that it slows gastric emptying. These 2 reasons will ensure that your insulin levels remain low, and it will decrease your glucose spike. What it means is that if you don't have apple cider vinegar and if you eat glucose, which means carbs, basically you're going to spike more your insulin. But if you have apple cider vinegar before the meal, 10 to 15 minutes before the meal, with a little bit of water, so a glass of water with a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, 10 to 15 minutes before the meals, decrease glucose levels and slow gastric emptying. Do this before every big meal, for example, before lunch, before dinner. Apple cider vinegar 10 to 15 minutes before meals can reduce glucose spike and insulin spike by up to 20%, which is massive. Which brings me to rule number 4, which is walk 10 to 15 minutes after meals. Now, I know most people, and I just told you that you need to aim for 10, 12, 15,000 steps per day. But as you noticed, I didn't tell you to walk 15,000 steps in a row. Why? Because it's not so much about the quantity of the steps, it's about when you're placing those steps. All right, so it doesn't matter. I mean, it's always better than get 15,000 steps in a row than getting 3,000 steps per day. But if you get in the morning and you get 15,000 steps and then you're just sitting, that is not the most beneficial thing that you can do. So ideally, you want to walk after meals. Do, for example, your fasted walk in the morning, 20, 30 minutes. You get perhaps 2, 3, 4,000 steps. Then you have your breakfast. After breakfast, walk 10 minutes only. You get 1,000 steps. Then after lunch, you walk again 10 more minutes, 1,000 steps more. And then after dinner, 1,000 steps more. And when I say 1,000 steps, it's more or less 10 minutes, takes 1,000 steps. It depends on your pace, of course. If you do 20 minutes, 15 minutes, even better. If you cannot go outside, just get a treadmill at home, a walking pad, just get your steps at home. But this can be a great time for you even to socialize, go with your family, with your kids, just do something like, don't think that this needs to be something rigid, that you need to be alone or something. Like, take your loved ones. Everyone literally will improve by doing this. Everyone will be healthier, everyone will be leaner, better digestion, less glucose spikes, less diabetes. If I had to choose maybe one habit for you to literally change your life, your body composition, and your energy, walk after meals. And I see these over and over. People just eat and they sit. Don't just go to the sofa. Don't just sit and scroll after you eat. Get your steps, 10 minutes. You're going to feel more energy. You're not going to have energy crash. You're not going to have brain fog. You're going to burn more fat. So remember, it's not so much about the quantity of the steps that you're getting daily. It's about when you're getting those steps, which brings me to point number 5, which is resistance training. And what I mean is lift weights 3 to 4 days a week. And as you see, I'm not placing huge emphasis on cardio, because if I had to choose 5 things to get rid of 30 pounds fast in a sustainable way, it's not cardio. You get your steps and you lift weights. The main priority for you to lose weight in a sustainable way, for you to lose fat, keep muscle, or even build muscle while you're losing weight, is to lift weights 3 to 4 days a week, 45 to 50 minutes, mainly compound movements, squats, deadlifts, shoulder press, bench press, military presses. You want 80% of the movements to be these big muscle groups. Then you can sprinkle that with some bicep curls, some triceps, a little bit of abs or something, but that's not the most important. So 80 to 90% needs to be these compound movements placed in a smart way. Don't just sit between the sets. So for example, if you have like 2-minute rest, which is totally fine if you're building strength, you don't need to just like do one set of bench press and then you sit for 2 minutes. Just walk around. You'll be surprised how many steps you get just by walking between sets. So your number one priority when it comes to losing fat and getting that lean and defined look that you're looking for is to build muscle. And don't worry, you will never build as much muscle as you think. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I don't want to be too bulky. Don't worry, you will never be bulky, okay? Because it's way harder to build muscle than what you probably think. And the exact body that you want is on the other side of you actually lifting weights. So don't be afraid of lifting weights. And why is it so important? Because it's the number one organ, muscle, that will improve insulin sensitivity. Muscle is the biggest organ that you have in your body, right? And muscle is metabolically active. What it means is that if you build more muscle with resistant training, it will act like a glucose sink. So think of muscle as a sponge. When you do cardio, you're not building muscle. What it means is that you do cardio for 1 hour, you run for 1 hour, you burn calories during that hour, and after that you're not burning more calories. Okay, so it's not like, of course you're still burning calories, but you know what I mean. Now, when you're doing strength training, after the strength training session, perhaps during that 1 hour of lifting weight, you burn less calories than when you're doing cardio. But the beauty of it, it's not what you do during the session, is what happens in your body 24, 48 hours after the session. And that's the beauty of strength training, which is if you're building muscle, that muscle is acting like a sponge. That sponge will improve insulin sensitivity. What it means is that you can eat more carbs, you can eat more of your favorite foods without being harmful, because that muscle, that sponge, will absorb that and it will improve insulin sensitivity. That's why for you to improve insulin sensitivity, for you to burn more fat, you need to build more muscle and you need to prioritize strength training. As you see, I didn't tell you to count calories, I didn't tell you to go on a specific diet, and I didn't tell you to take any fat burner. You can continue living your life, you just need to follow certain rules, make them as non-negotiable, make them as a system that is just part of your lifestyle. I have a full breakdown right here where I show exactly what I eat during my first meal.